Hello and welcome to more of me learning Haskell and live streaming it. Today I'm going to pick up from where I left off last time, which is looking at Haskell as a replacement for postgresql-simple. In the last episode, I installed it and got it working to connect to the database and to load a list of ledger entries, and then I can print them out. Today I'm going to look at inserting stuff into the database. So inserting a new ledger entry into there. And then the idea is I could then take it and use it to implement the effect I have for loading and saving, or basically storing ledger entries. And then rip out postgresql-simple and switch the whole application over to using Haskell instead. So that's the plan. This is where I left off last time. There's a little bit of it's not really a problem, but it's the connection is living inside this ledger database ledger file. So I'll move that out at some point. Listing is taking a connection. I can't remember if that's the correct way of doing it or not. I'll need to check what the interface is for the effect I have. But we can worry about all that when we get it working. Because what I really want to do is augment list statement and list session with maybe create statement and create session. So let's give that a go. So really what I want to do is say create statement is a statement I can't remember what this unit is the thing it takes in. I think it probably is the thing it takes in. It's look for that in a second. And it's not going to return anything. No, it'll return a single ledger entry. I might as well get the data back and return that. I think. Actually, let me go and check, because what are we doing? Yeah, it returns the ledger entry it creates. So we'll do that, the same thing. So the create statement, is, and then some stuff goes in here. Let me have a quick look and see if I can find the stuff that goes in there. Okay, so I think I want to use a singleton statement because it's only returning one value here. And I need to specify what it takes inside here and then what it returns outside of there. So the thing that it takes is a ledger entry and it returns it. And then I should be able to say, first of all, th dot singleton statement. And that's going to be insert. I guess it's just insert into ledger entries. Values, and then I guess it's a list of things. So what goes into the ledger entries? It's going to be, I can't remember what's inside this table. There's an ID, which is a UID. Oh, I can see it above. Actually, I don't need to remember it. An amount, which is an int 8. Int 8, no, 8. Oh, come on, John. 8. And a date time, which is a timestamp zip, timestamp TZ. Okay. Unterminated quasi quote. Oh, that. Okay. So now I've got these types slightly wrong. So it's going to be $1 and $2 instead of ID. So I guess it's going badly. $1 is the UID. $2 is that. And $3 is that. And now I hope the error message Yeah, so I've said the statement takes ledger entry, but I actually want a tuple consisting of a UID and N64 and a time. So I need to do this die map, I think is what I'm going to need for this. Extend those a little bit. So first of all, we're going to have the modification that we're going to apply to the input. So this is going from a ledger entry into a list of tuples. Right, so we can go ledger entry, and it's not a list of tuples, it's a single tuple. But it's going to be le.id. Has it got a field called ID? I think it's got a field called ID. le.amount and le. What was it on? Date time. Okay, and then how do we map it back again? Well, for a second, let me just put undefined for a second. Okay, so I don't have any type errors on the way in, which is good. Maybe I need to make this returning to give me back the data. Because I think what I'm going to get here is a result of this statement. So here can I say returning and this stuff. Apparently yes. So then does this give me a tuple of UID, amount, and date time? And then I can say ledger entry, UID, amount, date time. And there we go. Types check. That was surprising. It worked first time, but okay, if that works, then I want to create a session as well. I think. Not sure I understand the session. So it's going to be a session that returns a single ledger entry. And I guess the ledger entry and then create statement. Can match type ledger entry with UID in 64 C time to ledger entry. Okay, what are the arguments to statement? So statement says for all params result, params to statement to session result. And what is this? It says it's a ledger entry. It is of type ledger entry, but where does it come from? Let's see if I can find an example. Let's find the sessions there. Sessions. Oh, it's going to have to take a ledger entry here. I see. And do that, and then this will be ledger entry, and then we pass it in here. I'm going to suggest that. Oops. Look at that, it suggested it. Okay. So the create session, we give it a ledger entry, and it gives us back this session of ledger entry. Okay. And then I had list. I want something called create. I have a suspicion I'm not doing this quite right, but we'll see. Okay, it's going to take a ledger entry. Type's checkout, so it must be fine, right? It's either going to be a session error or it's going to be a single ledger entry. And it's got connection, and it's got the ledger entry. You can say not list session, but create session with that ledger entry using the connection. Okay, if that works, then I can just stick some code into main to do something with it. But we have the connection, so we run list, but let's do some ledger entry is ledger.create, and that needs a ledger entry and the connection. So it's going to be ledger entry, and it needs some kind of UID. Do I have an example done here for creating it? I do not. Okay. Need some kind of ledger entry which is going to have a UID and an amount. So the amount can be 100, I guess, and a date time, which is going to be now. So before we do that, the UID is v4.nextRandom, and now is get some kind of get time, get system time. So I'm going to give me get current time. Time to get current time might do it. Time to get current time. Let's try that. Okay, now it doesn't know what ledger entry is, so I'll import that. Couldn't much expect it to have connection with actual type ledger entry. So ledger.create takes a connection first. Okay. And then we can say it's getting horribly nested. This is the create result. So create result of, and then if we have an error, we'll print out the error. And if we have a ledger entry, I haven't got the variable yet, cool. I can say literal in create a ledger entry, and we will join it to the show of LE. Okay, but I'm going to say do at this point, and then we'll also take these and do at this point. So we'll try and insert something. If it successfully inserts it, we'll print out what we've inserted, and then we will list all of the ledger entries and print those out with some horrible nesting. But this is just to check if it works. Does it build actually? It's a good first question. Build very quickly. I need to source the mbrec. But again, wow, look at that. I won't open it yet. So we create a ledger entry with some ID, an amount, and a date time. And then hopefully I'll find this at the end. Look at that. So insert into the database and it loaded it again. Cool, okay. That worked quicker than I expected. Only 50 minutes in and I made the thing work, which is possibly a record for me. Okay, so that works. So the next thing I want to do is look at in the store. I've defined this effect, which has got load ledger and create ledger entry. And load ledger no, sorry, I want to look at the instances of it. So run LedgerStorage.io takes a config and then calls load from DB, passing in the config, and creating it called create in DB, taking the config, and trying a ledger entry. So the type of this thing I think create in DB is going to take a config rather than a ledger entry. Oh, that's right, because the config's got the database pool in it. So I'm just going to augment the config, put more stuff in it, and then I'll take things out later. But it doesn't have a pool in it. I take that back. It's got the connection details and the pool size and the idle time. But am I creating a new pool every time and not passing the pool of connections around? I do believe I am. That's not very good. Okay, shall I fix that now? It seems stupid to keep using that approach because that's clearly wrong. But the pool itself is not a config thing. One second, I'm just going to find where I call this from. So here, I call it passing in the config, and what I really want to do is call something passing in the pool of connections, or maybe a single connection. So I want an equivalent of this. I'm going to go to file for a second. In my library, I've got db.ledger, and I'm going to create some effect. So I'm going to say effect dot LedgerStore. I'm trying to think how I'm going to structure this. So I don't just want one massive effects file. I don't think. I was thinking of splitting them out. Maybe this is a bit too granular, but thinking of having for the ledger having a database module for the ledger, which has got the stuff we just wrote, the statements to insert and list. In the database, probably also be something to do with connection and pooling, and then the ledger store effects. But this is actually a couple of different things. We've got the definition of the effect, and then we're going to have the implementation of the effect for different different stores, different backends. So maybe I'll just create a ledger store. I'll put the effect in there, and I will put the wrapper for all of the backends into there as well. And I can split out a ledger if it gets too big. But what I didn't want to do is put it in store. I want to separate out the implementation of the actual database stuff from the wrapping it up in the effect. Because I think they're two slightly separate concerns. Okay, so I'm going to need source, effects, and then LedgerStorage. Give it a second, see if it'll catch up. There we go, look at that. That's not the thing I want to do. That was strange. Did I make it go small? No, I didn't. I don't know why the screen went blank there. Okay. I'll work out what to export in a second. So if I just go to store, really, I want to move all of this stuff in there as well. But let's start by just actually let's grab everything. For a second. So this is the effect we're going to create. I should look at effectful th as well to get rid of some of this boilerplate. But let's get it working first and then I'll come back and look at it. Not lambda case. Okay, so I need a whole lot of imports. Dispatcher comes from dynamic. That doesn't, sorry, dynamic comes from dynamic. Not that dynamic though. Where did dynamic come from? It comes from dispatch. I think it's this. Okay, that's the dynamic. This comes from effectful. F comes from effectful. Haskell stack comes from control something. No, it doesn't. Effectful dispatch dynamic. Haskell stack. Okay, IOE comes from effectful. Config comes from config, but I'm going to change that. I'll worry about what A is in a second. Send comes from effectful dispatch dynamic. I will now export LedgerStorage. And export load ledger and create ledger probably. I think I can do it from here. Okay, run LedgerStorage.io. I'm going to rename this. Actually, let's leave it as that. Okay, interpret comes from effectful. No, it comes from effectful dispatch dynamic. Lift.io is control monads. No, I can just add it to effectful. Okay, and then it goes load from DB and create in DB. Okay, so load from DB is load from DB is list. This thing, so it takes, what do they call this module? DB ledger. It takes a connection and it gives me back some stuff, and that stuff is going to be a little bit wrong. But I can call this, oops, import ledgerdb.list, and I will import db ledger qualified as ledgerdb. config is wrong. So let's just stick a hole in there. And now we've got a problem because it's supposed to be a list of ledger entries, but we have an either type in here. So so here instead of being just a list of ledger entries, I think it should be either, and then I might just copy this type for now. I can't remember what the type was. It was either a session.session error. This is annoying because I don't want the underlying implementation creeping out. So I have a custom error type here, which is load ledger error, but this is going to be, yeah, we'll put this back in again. So it goes in here as well. Okay. So now we have a problem. We're saying it couldn't match session error with load ledger error. Makes sense. So I want to do something where we catch that error and translate it, I guess. You can see the result is, oops. We will get back we get back the result of calling list basically, and the type of res is what exactly? I think it should just be if it's left and some error, then we can say something. Let's take a whole next one of the type. And if it's right of the ledger entries, I think that should just be pure ledger entries. Okay, now I can go back and say, okay, this type now is not the type I wanted. Right, so this I think is pure right of ledger entries. So now we're going to have pure of left of this whole, and this is now load ledger error. So can I say load ledger error and just no? So what's this type? It's a session error. Is that showable? Yes, it is. Okay. I'm not sure how great it's going to be, but at least we should get some error back. One whole left on a connection. And this is of type connection. Comes from Haskell. insert qualify Haskell connections hasql. Let me just actually import that type directly. Okay, so now it's not a config, but a connection, and that's what I'm going to pass in here. Okay, so that should be enough to load ledger entries. And now to create one, again, we might have some problems. So the type of this, I want to change a little bit. So it's going to be either a create ledger error or a ledger entry. And I just clone this and call this create. Oops, in there. Create ledger error. Then I need to update this, which is what I was hoping to avoid by using templates. Effectful th. Create ledger error or ledger entry. Okay. Right, so now create ledger entry is allowed to return an error. So now I can do something kind of similar. So I can say result, oops, is a result of calling lift.io with ledgerdb.create. And that takes a connection, and then it takes a ledger entry. And then it should build something similar to this. So this is not load ledger error, but create. Okay, I can just move here to there. Same thing here. Because I wonder if there's a quick way of writing this. So what we have here is the right of ledger entries just stays as the right of ledger entries. It's just that we want to modify the error part. So I really want to look for something that says either A and B and a function which goes from A to C to either C or B. Map left, but it's data either extra are any of these built in? That's what I'm wondering. No, it's an extra which I can pull in. I guess the definition is really short though. Either left.f or right. Do I have a function called either? We say map left. It was an A to C, either AB to either CB. Map left was either left.f, oops, had to capture F, or right. Cool. So then it's become pure of map left. But I think I could be even more, given I've written this function anyway, I could be even more precise. So I could say map session error. And all I need is this. I think. So if I have something like show A, and either A or B, and now I need something which goes from string to C, then I can do this, I think. So what have we got here? We've got some constructor. Don't think F is quite a name for constructor, but anyway. And we have our either type. So now we can say either. I mean, it's not left of F. We'll come back to it in a second. I don't need this anymore. Or right. But now this F is slightly wrong. So what we need to say is type of either wants a function that goes from an A to a C. A to a C. So we want I think what we want is that map session error result. A second. Let's see if we go that for a second. It needs a thing. Right, so the first thing I'm going to give it is load ledger error. Okay. And in theory, I can do this, but it's not load ledger error, it's create. Okay. And then instead of the pure, oops, drop that in. Do that. Okay, then we can get rid of do. And then we do similar thing above. Similar, not the same. So map session error, it's not going to be create, it's going to be load. And it's not going to be create here, it's going to be list. And it only takes a connection. Do that, get rid of the do. Okay. A slightly shorter definition of how to load the thing. So now I can export run LedgerStorage.io. And those ones go away. Okay, so in theory I can import effects LedgerStore get access to LedgerStore effect and also get access to the run LedgerStore IO definition, and I just need to worry about passing in the connection to it, which is the thing I need to work out. So where were we? In the API, into the store. So we can call it effects.LedgerStore. No, I can't call it effects because that will get confusing, because we've got the idea is to have multiple effects, like a logger, for example. Oops, okay, let's try doing that. Right, that's not in scope, but that is. Okay, and now we can't call store.load. But I could qualify this, and then we can no store.load and store.create ledger entry. What was store.load here? Store.load is just calling load ledger by this function. Load ledger is calling send. So could I just have called store.load ledger? Import qualified effects.LedgerStore as LedgerStore. Okay, so now return type is more complicated. We have potentially an error at this point. So what do I want to do with the error? One thing I could do is just return it for now. So it's LedgerStore dot load ledger error. No instance, presumably. No, effects of LedgerStore does not export it. Okay. Load LedgerStore error. What's it called? Load ledger error. And create ledger error. Should we be create ledger entry? But anyway. I could change this to say it's going to be either LedgerStore dot create ledger error or ledger entry. So these are multiple lines. I can. Okay. So here it's not going to be this, but it's going to be LedgerStore that do that. Okay, and then down here, it's not going to be stored at run LedgerStore IO. It's going to be LedgerStore. It's not LedgerStore. Yes, it is. Run LedgerStore IO. replace with LedgerStore. Run LedgerStore IO. What have I done wrong there? That was very strange. Anyway, config doesn't work. So I need some way of getting from config to a connection. So let me say the config comes from undefined. That's not right, obviously. But we can pass it in there. Okay. So, oh no, I just noticed I got a no instance for something. I'm guessing that my error types do not have to JSON from JSON instances. But let me finish the connection first. I'll come back to it. So the connection here is this thing. I'm going to move it into its own module. So you can have db.connection. Source db connection. Start in there. So we're going to take the only thing we'll export is connection for now. I'm going to replace this with a pool in a bit, but for now let's do it like that. So config comes from config, and this comes from Haskell, and this comes from Haskell. And this is import qualified. And config is no DB connection because I didn't import that. Okay. So now in theory, in the API, up here I can say this is actually db connection.connection and give it a config, and then it should be able to import this for me. Oh, interesting, yes and no. I got access to lift.io here. Yes and no. So the connection might not work. It's either connection error or the connection itself. So I get found really rather do this in main and pass it through. So here I won't pass the config, I'm going to pass the connection. And that's going to be a connection. Okay, and then this is also going to be a connection. And this is going to be the connection. And this is going to be the connection. And this one. And finally this one. Okay, so serve is complaining because there's no anyway, to JSON instance for load ledger error. It'll be the same for create ledger error. So in the effects where I have to find them, deriving stock, showing generic, and deriving any class to JSON. So that comes from GHC generics. This comes from ASIN. We do the same thing in here. Any class to JSON. Okay, and now this file looks okay. I can just get rid of these imports. Okay, so now the problem that when we call run from main, we don't have the connection. Do we? If I restart the LSP, we might have that error. I can get rid of some of this. So if we have a connection, then I can run with the connection. My thinking. It's super not happy right now. Fish. Well build, show me where the error is. Non-scope in source API. Did I forget to save the file? That'll do it. Okay, better. So in main, I can get rid of this unused import, and I'm also not using these to create something. So get rid of these imports. Now it's looking better. Okay, so Cabal run pay me. Open a browser. There we go. Gets them back, but now it uses Haskell rather than using postgresql-simple. Okay, so now if I just go back to the Cabal file, I can get rid of store, I think. What's in DB on its own? That's the connection pool stuff. And I will get rid of this. I'll get rid of store, I think. And I'm going to get rid of postgresql-simple, which I can't see. Weird. Why did it not depend on postgresql-simple? Okay, now I'm confused. Because I put it in shared. Okay, so db, delete file, oh, it's trash, fine. Store, delete that as well. Cabal build, and let's see if it was mentioned anywhere else. It's a lot of recompilation. Why is it recompiling postgresql-simple? What's not saved? Config is not saved, but that's okay because I haven't done anything to it. The Cabal file. So I've got PostgreSQL migration still, but I think that's only reference to PostgreSQL I have in there. No postgresql-simple. For some reason, it's recompiling everything. Why not? I need more CPU, or faster CPU actually. And there are some flags I can give to Cabal to tell it to do more stuff in parallel. And I'm wondering why I had to recompile everything when I pulled out a dependency. Seems a bit strange. Anyway. Hope to be done soon. Let's go and look ahead. This is for next time though. But maybe it doesn't read me. There should be a link to some kind of migration. The pool thing I want to look at, I think. And this SQL migration. So it's just a port of PostgreSQL-simple migration. I'm hoping it'll be really quick to just swap them out. And the pool, not all the information there. Source library, exposed pool. So I guess I can create this, and then it also has acquire. Hopefully I could just use pool.acquire rather than connection.acquire. Why is it building this if I'm not using it? It's a bit annoying. I really don't get why I decided to recompile everything at this point. Can I stop this? It did find some errors. Okay, cool. In main.hs. Where did that ever come from? Why is that suddenly shows up? db.hs. That's gone, so that error should be gone away. So the only error I should have left is in main.hs, but they don't match the errors I'm getting here. So migrate has lost PostgreSQL. Okay, so back to Cabal. Oops. To Cabal file. Right on here. So in migrate, it's going to require that. me try building it again. Hopefully it won't rebuild the whole thing. Okay, that's a bit quicker. In main, I think I need to restart LSP. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it looks happier. So in theory, I can run payme again. Open browser, even though it's already open. So it's still working, which is good. It's still using Haskell, and I've now ripped out postgresql-simple for most of the code, but not migrations. Cool. Okay. So next week, I am going to. I think I'm going to replace the connection with a connection pool, and then I can start looking at writing some new SQL or some new functionality basically, but that was dependent on adding some new tables and adding some additional SQL stuff, which is why I wanted to make the switch before I did it. So maybe next time, after I've done the pooling stuff, I can, on the migration stuff, I can take a look at adding a little bit more to the actual API. So adding accounts and linking accounts to ledger entries, and then being able to load the ledger or the ledger entries belonging to a single account. Yeah, so that's my plan for next week. But today I'm quite pleased that I actually got Haskell working and sorted out my effects. And yeah, hopefully see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.